Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if it is your first time here, hi, my name is Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad to have you. Please consider subscribing to my channel and of course giving this video a big thumbs up. I really appreciate it. There has been something going on in the news recently that I would like to talk about. This is something that I wanted to talk about for a while. I missed the initial wave of it, but then there were more developments this past Tuesday. And as everybody knows in the commentary community, how quickly you can get to something while the iron is still hot, so to speak, really matters because relevancy matters. So hopefully I'm not too late to the party on this. It's interesting because I really haven't seen a whole lot of people talking about this, and I really thought that there would have been more, but maybe this is all still a little bit too new. Maybe we're going to see more coming out later on as this starts to pick up steam, which I suspect it will. I'm sure you've already guessed what this video is about based off of the title. Just real quick, I do want to give a quick disclaimer because I have a federal job and I would like to keep my job. I just want to say that, of course, I do not condone nor support the illegal distribution, selling, or consuming of any illegal or controlled substance. Okay, let's get into the video. So unless you live under a rock, you probably are aware that back in May, Denver, Colorado became the first city in the United States to decriminalize psilocybin magic mushrooms. It was a pretty big deal. This is the first time anything like this has happened since Nixon began his initial war on drugs back in, I want to say, the 60s or 70s. And it's a pretty big deal for everybody in the psychedelic community and also for the medical community. And that's something that I want to address in this video. The leader of the decriminalized movement in Denver, Colorado, Kevin Matthews, said that this movement was going to be a clear message to the rest of the country. They were attempting to get a ball rolling, and I think now, after what happened Tuesday, they have started to do exactly that. So on Tuesday, Oakland, California became the second city in the United States to decriminalize psilocybin. Decriminalization simply means that anyone in possession of psilocybin is placed on the kind of low end of the priority list for law enforcement, and if someone is caught with psilocybin in their possession, they will not be criminally prosecuted. It's a pretty big deal considering that up until very recently, and still in many parts of the world overall, someone can be sent to prison for upwards of 25 years to life for having psilocybin or other types of psychedelics in their possession. Bear in mind that that is a longer prison sentence than for murder. One of the main reasons that I think the Oakland decriminalization ballot went through is simply because there were so many people that came forward and shared their personal testimonies about the impact the psychedelics had had on their ability to overcome addiction of a wide variety, anxiety and depression. And that is something that I want to address. One of the big things that I think is interesting, psilocybin and most psychedelics in general are considered Schedule 1 substances, which means that they are at the very tippy top of the illegal controlled substances, what the government considers the most dangerous and highly controlled. And what that means for the medical community is that it has been very, very difficult for them to conduct any kind of research on the effects of psychedelics on the human brain and the human body. And even if they do manage to conduct those studies, they are frequently not accepted by the medical community overall because of the stigma attached to psychedelic. And as you're going to see here pretty soon, that is a major crying shame. I have a couple of articles here that I obtained through just a really quick search on Google Scholar. I'll put the links in the description, as well as the links to the two news stories that I found for Denver and for Oakland, so you can go and look at those. But the first one is from the journal Neurotherapeutics, and it's called Potential Therapeutic Effects of Psilocybin. And I'm just going to read a real quick little bit of this. So in this study trial, they tested the effects of psilocybin on a group of individuals, and for mood and anxiety disorders, 3 controlled trials have suggested that psilocybin may decrease symptoms of depression and anxiety in the context of cancer-related psychiatric distress for at least 6 months following a single acute administration. A small open-label study in participants with treatment-resistant depression showed reduction in depression and anxiety symptoms 3 months after 2 acute doses. So what that means is that they took these participants, gave them a high dose of psilocybin, and overall the effects were spectacular. They took people who have been struggling with depression depression and had not been responsive to the ordinary pharmaceutical drugs that most people would be given, gave them psilocybin, and these people saw a marked improvement. That is incredible, because if you stop and consider the stigma and the fear-mongering that has been created around psychedelics and around psilocybin over the last X amount of years, and now you have people coming forward saying, wait, no, this saved my life. It's pretty incredible and really eye-opening, and should give everybody having this conversation pause to think whether or not we have been misguided in giving psychedelics the bad guy label that they've been given for so many years. There's a second study here, and this one was obtained from the Journal of Psychopharmacology. So this study is titled Psilocybin Assisted Treatment for Alcohol Dependence, a Proof of Concept Study. And they took 10 individuals who had alcohol dependence. It states here that participants' responses to psilocybin were quantitatively similar to those described in other populations. Abstinence did not increase significantly in the first 4 weeks of treatment when participants had not yet received psilocybin, but increased significantly following psilocybin administration. Gains were largely maintained at follow-up to 36 weeks. So that means that you're taking individuals who have an alcohol dependence and alcohol addiction, administered psilocybin, and 36 weeks after that experience, they were still abstinent from alcohol. This is huge. If you don't know any alcoholics personally, you might not realize how big of a deal this is. If you're just the average individual who goes out and can have a drink and then, go home and not think anything of it, then I can understand how this might not seem like that big of a deal to you. But alcoholism and alcohol dependency is a really big deal. It is as much an illness and an addiction as any other, and it deserves to be treated that way. I think that our culture and our society is largely to blame for the alcohol problem that we have, because it's been glorified. And we have so many holidays surrounding alcohol consumption, from Christmas to New Year's to Easter to Memorial Day. There's so many, Thanksgiving, there's so many where alcohol is like the central focal point. St. Patrick's Day, for crying out loud. I've seen the meme before where it's basically 420 for alcoholics, and I think that that's very accurate. I have had the misfortune of knowing a lot of people who have had a very serious alcohol problem and have had to go through programs to try to get their problem under control. It's absolutely heartbreaking to watch. I've known some of them intimately, and to see someone that you love struggle with something like that and fail to be able to get it under control is just incredibly heartbreaking. And to have something like this, a resource that could potentially help people, not only alcoholics, but people who are struggling with other substance related problems, depression, anxiety. In the case with the cancer patients who were struggling with trying to understand and embrace the fact that their life was going to come to an end, and that they were going to have to say goodbye to their families, that they were going to die. To be able to give them something like that, to help them, to give them relief, and to help them realize that this is not the end of the road for anyone, that there's more to life, and that everyone is capable of more than what they limit themselves to, is huge. And the fact that these first two cities are taking a step towards changing America's mind, and perhaps even the world, about psychedelics is huge. And I know that there's a very strong stigma attached to psychedelics, a lot of fear, frankly a lot of pseudoscience and a lot of misinformation. But just within the last 5 years or so, I've seen so many people start coming forward and start really putting in the work to rewind some of those misconceptions, to educate people, to help people be smart about psychedelics, about drugs in general if they're going to consume them. Because let's be real, I think we can all agree that the war on drugs has been an astronomical failure. It hasn't worked, and it hasn't kept people from getting high, it hasn't kept people from overdosing, it hasn't kept people from making really stupid decisions, and it hasn't kept people from using psychedelics. So I think as a society as a whole, we really need to shift the way that we are dealing with substance-related issues. We need to shift our perspective on psychedelics, and we need to shift the way that we are handling these issues, because people are falling through the cracks, people are still getting hurt, people are misinformed, and there are people who could be receiving help that are not getting it. And that is because of federal regulations, frankly, that are outdated and antiquated and are keeping people from resources that could save their lives or ease their existence. I truly believe, and I'm not the only one who feels this way, there have been a number of YouTubers and people in the entertainment industry, people in the social media community, people just in general, who have begun to realize that there is a shift occurring in our society and in the world as a whole. It probably began 10-15 years ago, but it's really started to pick up steam. It's something that I have noticed personally in my interactions with people. It's something that I can see just in the way people interact on social media, the topics that people are beginning to be interested in, that there is a shift occurring within our society and our species. We are beginning to wake up. We are beginning to re-examine the ways that we previously thought about life. We are beginning to re-examine our relationship with the natural world and with each other, what it means to be a human being, what it means to have a life, what qualifies as a life. A lot of people are really, really up in arms over Alabama and Georgia and Missouri and the host of other states that have decided to repeal the legality of abortion. But in my mind, that is a symbol of the fact that people are beginning to realize that life is incredibly precious, that we have been neglecting our health overall and the health of those who are the most innocent, and that in the case with these decriminalization ballots and votes, there are people who are beginning to realize that we have resources, really powerful resources that we need to be able to understand and use to help people that have been abused and misunderstood for a really, really long time. I believe that we are waking up, and it's happening very slowly. A lot of people really don't like it because it's pushing them outside of their comfort zone and forcing them to face things that nobody wants to face, but I think it is a good thing. Change is good and change is coming, and I really wanted to just jump on here and share some of my thoughts and impressions because I think it's a very exciting time to be alive. I do have to say, because I know there's going to be somebody who brings it up to me either in person or in the comments, you know, just because something can be used for good doesn't mean that people aren't going to abuse it, and I think that that is a big part of the problem related to the whole psychedelic issue in general, because a lot of people seem to think that psychedelics are bad because they've seen people abuse them, but it's interesting to me that people don't feel the same way largely about alcohol. They will if you push them, if you like really push them to think about it, they'll be like, yeah, I know it is. But in general, the attitude towards alcohol versus the attitude towards these substances is like night and day. And all I have to say is that something can be good and still be abused. People abuse alcohol, people abuse pharmaceuticals, people abuse psychedelics, people abuse food. Just because something can be abused and misused doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't have access to it and that people shouldn't be able to use it to help other people. Just because people abuse food doesn't mean that we shouldn't be allowed to eat. That's absolutely insane. Just because people use cars to cause harm and commit crimes doesn't mean that people shouldn't be allowed to drive cars. Just because there are people out there who do bad things and go out and shoot people and kill people doesn't mean that we shouldn't have the right to protect ourselves. And just because there are people out there who abuse certain substances like psychedelics and use them incorrectly doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to use them to help people and to do research and to open people's minds to the possibilities, because the possibilities are real, and I am so thankful that we are finally starting to wake up to that fact, and I am thrilled. I am not just saying this because I have a federal job. It's 110% the truth, like I swear it. I have never used any type of substance. I've never smoked. I've never used any kind of psychedelic whatsoever, so my stance on this might seem a little bit surprising, but to be honest, I believe that we should use the resources that we have available to us, and we should use them responsibly and make smart choices. And that is why I feel so passionately about this, the same that I do for 2A rights and for the pro-life movement and for everything else, because I see the good in it and the potential to help people and improve people's lives. And I see our rights to be happy and healthy and to live full and complete lives as the human beings and the consciousness that we are. And that is why my feelings on this subject are so strong. I believe it can be very beneficial to certain people, like we've already discussed, and I would hate for somebody to not get the help that they need because of an antiquated attitude that is based on pseudoscience and misunderstanding. So what is next? I don't really know, to be honest. I think the sky is the limit. I think that, you know, as a society in the United States, we've seen so much happen just within like the last couple of decades. So much has happened. There are people who have liberties now that they didn't have 10, 15 years ago. There are people who have the confidence to speak out about their identities and about how they feel about their lives. And I think that that is powerful because It forces us to listen to a different perspective, and it forces us to recognize that not everyone is going to fit into our little box of how we think reality should be. I think that that is wonderful. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I am hopeful and I am positive and I am ready. I am ready to greet whatever comes with open arms and just see where the road takes us. That is really it for this video. I just wanted to talk about this while the topic was still fresh and kind of give my perspective on it. Let me know what you think in the comments or shoot me a message. I would love to talk about it more. I have plenty of thoughts. Otherwise, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching it if you've stuck with it this far. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so. All important links and everything else for this video will be down in the description below. Go and check those out. Follow me on social, and I will see you guys soon for the next video.